No one has to now listen foolhardy. It's a press. Looks like it can hold quite a large amount of fruit. Narracot? I thought you'd be long gone by now. That storm's getting pretty fierce. Somebody scuttled my boat. I saw Blore watching you like a hawk eyes its dinner. Could it have been him? Possibly. Any idea why? I'd rather not say. Suit yourself. I'd better get ready for dinner. That sounds like the dinner bell.
Mr. Narracot, unfortunately we are not prepared for your presence at dinner. I would be most happy to deliver you a sandwich later this evening, if that will do.
That will be fine, Rogers. Thank you.
Excellent. Now, if you will excuse me, I must get to serving.
By all means. I can hear them all in the dining room chattering. I can't quite make out what they're saying. This might be a good time to explore the house more thoroughly. These are very expensive linens. I bet they're very strong. I don't need to lug. I can't take that apart. I copied the contents into my notebook. Nothing a little elbow grease can't undo. I copied the contents into my notebook. I copied the contents into my notebook. I can't see anything of interest. I copied the contents into my notebook. This bears a closer look. I copied the contents into my notebook. I copied the contents into my notebook. I transcribed the pertinent passages in my notebook. I copied the contents into my notebook. I can't see anything of interest. Perhaps another time. This bears a closer look. Aha! With my ear against the door, conversation becomes quite clear.
Wine, Doctor?
No, thank you, Rogers. I never touch alcohol. Except for sterilizing wounds or instruments, of course.
I tried to collect some apples from an orchard on the island, but a bee stung me. I'm afraid I dropped the basket and ran. No need to apologize. I myself am dreadfully allergic to bees, wasps, hornets. I'm sorry to hear there are bees here. Oh, you must take care. There's all sorts of those bee house things. What do you call it?
An apiary.
Oh, I thought that was for monkeys.
Ethel.
Miss Claythorne, we've never met, but I do seem to recall your name.
Oh?
Yes, from when I stayed at that stuffy old hotel near St. Treadney. Do you know it?
No. No, I don't think so.
Really? How extraordinary. I was so shocked.
Narracott says he's not Fred Fane, but his brother. It may well be, but he bears watching.
Seems like such a nice man.
They said the same thing about Stevenson, the child murderer. I confess I've never met our host, Mr. Owen. What kind of a man is he? Rogers?
We haven't seen the Owens either, sir. We were only engaged a week ago by letter, and asked to make the house ready.
So no one has actually met the Owens.
How extraordinary.
I, for one, will have some sharp questions for the Owens when they do arrive.
Aha! With my ear against the door, the conversation becomes quite clear.
Did anyone else see the poem over the fireplace?
10 little sailor boys. Yes, I saw it.
And here before us is the centerpiece of our table are the 10 little sailor boys themselves, all looking correct and polished.
I like a neat and tidy house, Your Honor.
Robson, the man who built this house, was a sailor. Perhaps Mr. Owen inherited them from him.
Another question for Mr. Owen.
As I remember, the rhyme was about soldier boys. Highly inappropriate, as I recall.
There are many variations.
You seem to know quite a bit about it, Miss Claythorne.
I was a governess before seeking secretarial work. Governesses spend a lot of time with nursery rhymes.
All gratuitously gruesome, if you ask me. So much violence in the world today.
Very, Miss Brent.
There speaks a soldier for you.
A realist, Miss Brent. Facts needs to be taken. I, for one, am fully prepared to take it.
How does the famous rhyme go, Miss Claythorne?
Must we harp on this topic at dinner?
Miss Brent may be right, Mr. Marston. The rhyme is a bit gruesome. It's there over the fireplace in the parlour if you care to have a look later.
If you think so. Excellent meal, Rogers. My compliments to both you and your good woman. You've done your employers proud.
Thank you, sir, ladies and gentlemen. Most gratifying, I'm sure. After dinner, front parlour.
Ladies and gentlemen, silence please. This is your host, UN Owen. You are charged with the following indictments. Edward George Armstrong, that you did upon the 14th day of March 1925 cause the death of Louisa Mary Cleese. Emily Caroline Brent, that upon the 5th of November 1931 you were responsible for the death of Beatrice Taylor. William Henry Blore, that you brought about the death of James Stephen Landor on October 10th, 1928. Vera Elizabeth Claythorne, that on the 11th day of August 1935 you killed Cyril Ogilvy Hamilton. Philip Lombard that upon a date in death of 21 men, members of an East African tribe, John Gordon Mackenzie, that on the 4th of January 1917 you deliberately sent your wife's lover, Arthur Richmond, to his death. Anthony James Marston, that on the 14th of November last you were guilty of the murder of John and Lucy Rogers, that on the 6th of May 1940 of Jennifer Brady, Lawrence John Wargrave, that upon the 10th day of June 1934, you were murder of Seaton. Prisoners at the bar, have you anything to say in your defense?
Doctor! I only fainted, Rogers. I'm sure she'll be fine. Narracott, will you get my bag from my room?
Yes, of course.
Stout fellow, Marston. In a moment, I'll want help to get her to her room. Of course. Behind the kitchen, is it, Rogers?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. You can use that door.
Thank you, Mr. Narracott. I am in your debt.
Now, Rogers, tell us about that extraordinary voice.
It was Mr. Owen, sir. In his letter, he wrote to me to put it on the gramophone once we were all settled in here after dinner.
That was Mr. Owen's voice?
You doubt that it was?
No. I thought I recognized it. I'm sure I'm mistaken.
A disgraceful practical joke.
You think it was a joke?
What else could it be?
I will need to hear more evidence before offering an opinion.
Mr. Marston and I carried Mrs. Rogers to her room. I gave her a mild sedative. She's resting comfortably.
Whoever it was on that recording, that person knows or has taken the trouble to find out a good deal about us all. He was correct about Seaton. I presided at the trial, but all I did was execute a guilty man.
I remember the case. As I recall, there was some talk.
Happily, guilt and innocence are decided by those of us qualified to make a judgment, not by gossip. Of course, there is one omission in that recording. Mr. Narracott, of course. Although to hear Mr. Blore tell it, he might have earned a place on that list, had Mr. Owen been so inclined.
Any truth to the accusation against you?
It's a matter of interpretation, you understand. But I'd have to say, yes.
Will you tell me how it happened?
Elderly woman. Poor devil. I'd been up all night with an emergency case. My nerves were shot, hands shaking. But I had to operate. I had to try and save her. I had a pick-me-up or two to steady myself, but I bungled it. It wasn't the drink, I swear. It was an accident. Could have happened to anyone in my profession.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
Owen sent me a note, asking me to have a look at his wife, who's been suffering from arthritis and muscle spasms.
What was the gossip concerning the Seaton case?
I'm not one to spread gossip, just anyone about a man as distinguished as Justice Wargrave. If I was certain about it, perhaps. But I'm not.
That is all for now, Dr. Armstrong. I have nothing more to say to him.
The name sounded vaguely familiar. I expect it will come to me.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
Got a wire from a pal of mine, Badger Barkley. Surprised me at the time because I had an idea the old horse got to Norway. Don't you roll up here?
Good evening, Mr. Marston. Any truth to the accusation against you?
It's true we were the only ones there the night Brady died. But she was always in poor health. Always. From the time we came to her.
Will you tell me how it happened?
There was a storm, as fierce as the one brewing outside right now when she was taken bad. The telephone was out of order. I went for the doctor on foot, but he got there too late.
Were you mentioned in the will?
Barely. Certainly not what we were led to believe. She was just saying it, you see, to ensure our devotion to her. Beg pardon. I'm not sure what came over me just then. The strain of tonight, I expect, and worry over Mrs. Rogers, of course.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
We expected to finally meet Mr. and Mrs. Owen today. Ethel didn't want to take the job, but I insisted. I'm beginning to wish I'd listened to her.
Good evening, Mr. Rogers. Any truth to the accusation against you?
Owen did his research well. The accusation is absolutely true. I don't see that you've earned the right to any details, though.
Will you tell me how it happened?
Oh, it was written up in the papers at the time. A story of self-preservation, pure and simple. A hunting party lost in the bush. The great white hunter checks the food supplies, assesses his chances, and clears out on his own.
Leaving 21 men to die.
Not very Puka Sahib, I'm afraid.
What brought you here to Shipwreck Island?
Owen's attorney, a man named Archibald Morris, rang up one day. Wanted to give me 100 guineas to join this house party. I was to put myself at Owen's disposal in case my rather specialized talents were required.
What specialized talents would those be?
You might say I'm a good man in a scrap.
Thank you, Lombard.